on. Again, a lot of it focused on our international partners, specifically the European Space Agency and their Columbus module, putting a communication antenna out as well as completing some outfitting on their Bartolomeo payload structure that's on the outside of their module for housing payloads. So Rick and his team will tell you about the specifics of that, but we're excited to finally get those activities done for one of our partners. And in between these first and second EVAs, we're going to do another task that a lot of us have been waiting on for a while. As many of you might know, we've been replacing the batteries on the outside of the station on our solar arrays for a number of years, and we completed the last set here late last year. But there was one battery that failed on us shortly after we installed it a little over a year ago, and so we now have the spare on board for that particular battery location, and so we'll go swap that out shortly after this first EVA, and then the second EVA, the team there will go in and clean up that work site and make sure that we're good for the long term. And again, they can talk to you about the details of all the things they're doing. But again, very excited to be here. Glad to finally get these EVAs on the schedule, and we're ready to go. And with that, I'll hand it over to Rick.
Okay, thanks, Kenny. My name is Rick Henfling. I'm the lead flight director for the spacewalk that will be on January 27th. It's named the Columbus Upgrades EVA. First and foremost, I wanted to extend my thanks to healthcare workers around the world for their tireless efforts as we've endured through this pandemic. It's a tremendous privilege to be the lead flight director for this upcoming spacewalk. We've got a really strong international team involving our European colleagues. We have been preparing for the better part of a year as we awaited the arrival of the Bartolomeo platform. It arrived on the SpaceX CRS-20 mission last April. It was installed robotically, and now we have a few more tasks using our spacewalkers to hook up the power and data connections. We've got a really strong team. We've trained together, both our European team and our team here in Houston, and we're ready to go next Wednesday. As far as crew preparations, today the crew members performed some standard maintenance on their spacesuits to ensure the cooling loops were configured properly for next week's spacewalk. And in the afternoon today, they shifted their efforts towards procedure review and study time. And just a few minutes ago, we finished our final conference with the crew members, answering any questions they may have leading up to the EVA. Tomorrow is going to be an off-duty day for the crew members, and then on Sunday, we'll have Mike Hopkins and Victor Glover get into their spacesuits for what we call an on-orbit fit check verification. As you may be aware, when astronauts get into zero-G, their bodies tend to grow. They get a little bit taller. And so we're going to get into the spacesuits on Sunday and make sure that everything still fits perfectly so that the crew members are comfortable when they go out and perform their spacewalk. When we get into Monday and Tuesday next week, we'll finish our preparations. We'll have another conference with the crew members, and then all leading up to the spacewalk on Wednesday, which will begin approximately 6 o'clock a.m. Central Time. With that, I will hand over to Sarah Corona, who is our lead spacewalk officer for next Wednesday's EVA.
A pleasure to be part of this team, and we are very excited to execute it. I did want to call out the folks in the back room who are going to be helping out for this EVA and the next EVA, which is Mitch Harger, Colin Murphy, and Reagan Cheney. And so with that, we have a video to show the choreography of this EVA. So we'll show the video, and then we'll come back, and I've got some hardware to show you. So.
U.S. EVA Cole upgrades is going to begin with EV-1 egressing the Quest airlock first. The crew is going to be bringing out with them the COLCA, which stands for the Columbus Ka-band antenna. This hardware is going to be installed on the Columbus module during this EVA. EV-1 is going to translate out to the Columbus module via the translation path you can see here. And we'll need to set up a few things at the worksite before that installation. EV2 is going to translate to an external platform called ESP2, where he is going to be ingressing the SSRMS, the robotic arm. The robotic arm is going to be taking him over to the Columbus worksite with the Kolka. So the crew members are going to meet up at the worksite. They need to remove bolts that are on the Columbus panels. Where those bolts are removed is where the Kolka is going to be installed. So they work together securing Kolka to the Columbus module. Once it is secure, EV2 is going to route the cabling for that Kolka and plug it into the Columbus module. Meanwhile, EV1 is going to head to the Bartolomeo platform. So Bartolomeo is an external platform in which payloads can be installed. There are clamps that need to be opened up in order to remove the cabling that needs to get routed in order to activate the Bartolomeo platform. So the crew works together to get those cables routed and installed. EV1 also needs to remove another set of cabling that is going to hook up an antenna for Bartolomeo, which you can see here. Once Bartolomeo is complete, the crew members are going to go back to the Kolka and remove a cover. So the cover was installed in order to protect the antenna during installation. Since it's no longer needed, we are going to have EV2 jettison that cover while he's on the SSRMS. And once the activities are complete at the Columbus worksite, both crew members meet back up at the Quest airlock. They reconfigure some bags to take out with them for their next task, which is going to be out at the portmost section of the space station truss. They're going to be heading out to P6. You can see the translation path here. And the crew members are going to be removing an H fixture. So this H fixture is not needed on the solar arrays. So we're going to remove that H fixture. Both of them are going to be removing one of them. And this plate is going to be removed because it's going to be where a future upgrade of the solar arrays is going to be installed. So the plates are removed, put into a bag, and they will be brought back inside after the EVA. So once both crew members are complete with that, they both head back to the Quest airlock, and we have completed the plan tasks for the EVA. If there is some time at the end of the EVA, we will have some get-aheads for the crew to perform.
Okay, so I was able to bring a mock-up of the H fixtures. So this is a robotic interface that is no longer needed. And this is the last task that we have for the EVA. And we are heading out to the portmost part of the truss, so on P6. And so each crew member is going to be removing this H fixture. So it is secured by 4 bolts. So they're going to release those bolts and then pry this plate off of the structure. So this is what's going to be coming back inside station, and this is what's on the solar array, and these attach points is what we're going to use to upgrade the solar array system on future EVAs. Okay, and that's all I have for the Columbus upgrades. We can move on to Vincent.
Thanks, Sarah. So my name is Vincent LaCourte. I'm the lead flight director for the ISS Upgrades 2 spacewalk. As Kenny mentioned, we have one new lithium-ion battery that we need to get installed. So before the EVA, we need to do some activities that we execute from the ground. Starting the night of the Columbus Upgrade spacewalk, we start to discharge 2 of the old-style nickel hydrogen batteries. That takes us about 2 days. After that is complete, we do 2 days of ground robotics activities where we remove those 2 batteries and install the new lithium-ion battery. And at that point, we are ready for our spacewalk. Our first task moves an adapter plate, and that allows us to connect the electrical connector to that battery, and then it is ready for use. The other 3 major tasks for our spacewalk are camera-related tasks. We're replacing one of our degraded cameras on the space station. And then we're upgrading and installing one of our, in one of the places where we only have an SD standard def camera, and installing a high definition camera. And then lastly, we're going to the Japanese robotic arm and replacing a camera and light assembly there. At this point, I'm going to hand off to our lead spacecraft officer, Sandy Fletcher, and she's going to narrate an animation to give you more details on our spacewalk.
Thank you. To begin the ISS upgrades to EVA, EV1 with red stripes egresses the airlock, followed by EV2. Both crew translate to the 4 Alpha integrated equipment assembly, where EV1 installs a scoop on the direct current switching unit, and EV2 stows a tool bag onto the adapter plate. The crew work together to remove the adapter plate from slot 2 and bring it to slot 6. To install the adapter plate, the EV crew drive 2 bolts on the adapter plate. EV1 drives 1 bolt on the lithium-ion battery in slot 5. EV2 uses a ratchet wrench to break torque on the direct current switching unit, and then resets the torque at a lower value with the pistol grip tool. EV2 connects the adapter plate to the lithium-ion battery, completing the circuit for the 4 Alpha 3 power channel. EV1 translates to the 4 Alpha Beta gimbal assembly. EV1 removes the H fixture in preparation for a future EVA. EV1 then returns to the airlock. EV2 previously returned to the airlock and now goes to the external stowage platform 2. EV2 removes a portable foot restraint, installs it onto the robotic arm, and then ingresses. The robotic arm takes EV2 to the camera port 3 worksite at the S1 lower outboard location. EV1 brings out the replacement camera group to the worksite. With both crew at the worksite, EV2 releases 3 bolts and removes the failed camera group. The crew swap out the failed and replacement units. Then EV2 installs and drives 3 bolts. EV1 then returns the failed unit to the airlock. The arm flies EV2 over to the US laboratory module and the camera port 13 worksite. EV2 installs an external high-definition camera onto the current camera group. EV2 mates connections and installs a strap before returning to the external platform 2. Since there are no further arm operations during this EVA, EV2 will egress the arm and remove the portable foot restraint. After EV1 stows the failed camera group 3 in the airlock, he retrieves the new wrist vision equipment box and translates along the US laboratory in Node 2 module, then under the Japanese experiment module to the exposed facility. At the base of the Japanese robotic arm, EV1 stows a tool bag carrying the wrist vision equipment. This box provides a camera view and light to support arm operations. EV1 installs a scoop, which is a handling aid, onto the failed wrist vision equipment box, and then removes the box. Then installs the new wrist vision equipment box and removes the handling aid from that and stows that in the tool bag. EV1 retrieves the tool bag with the failed wrist vision equipment and then retraces his path along the Japanese experiment module, the Node 2 module, to the US laboratory. EV1 goes to the base of the camera port 13 stanchion and will mate the Ethernet cable to the wireless access port cable of the newly installed external high-definition camera. Both crew return to the airlock. EV2 ingresses, followed by EV1, completing the planned task for ISS upgrades to EVA.
All right, and thank you very much for those overviews of our upcoming 2 spacewalks. We'll now move into the question and answer portion of the briefing. As a reminder, members of the media, please press *1 to ask a question or *2 to withdraw it, and please direct your question to one of our specific participants. For those on social media, you can tweet a question with the hashtag #AskNASA, and that's where we are going to begin today. Selen on Twitter asks, how long can an astronaut remain in their EVA or space suit? And Rick, how about you take this one for us?
Sure. The astronaut can stay in their spacesuit for about 6.5 hours, and that's how long we nominally schedule the spacewalks. Of course, we don't want to have the spacewalkers outside for an extended period of time, such that they would run out of their suit consumables. So we always plan to return them to the airlock and get them back in a repressurized portion of the space station with plenty of margin remaining before their consumables run out.
Thank you very much. And another question, this from Miguel on Twitter, asking, how do astronauts mentally prepare for 5 or more hour-long spacewalks, especially since you don't use your body and mostly your arms? Vincent, can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I'll start with the training they get on the ground. Each astronaut gets to spend time in our pool, the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, where they really get to do full duration practice spacewalks, where they really get that preparation that prepares them for real life. In the pool, it feels very, very similar to how it feels in space, so they get that practice. So even for Victor Glover, who hasn't done a spacewalk yet, he has that ground experience. And then on board, we give them a lot of time to study procedures. We give them videos to walk through, as well as conferences where we get to talk with them and give them all the experience they need so they feel confident going into the spacewalk.
Thank you very much. Another question, this one from Kate on Twitter, asking who will be operating the robotic arm during the first 2 spacewalks. So, Sarah, if you can give us that information.
Sure. So Kate Rubins is going to be the main robotic operator. We call her M1. And Suichi Noguchi is going to be backing her up. He is going to be M2 during these spacewalks.
Thank you very much. And this next question, this for Kenny. If you could do any upgrades to the space station of your choosing, what would it be?
Well, I personally think the solar arrays that we're going to do here over the next couple of years are going to be very important to us. I think one thing we're learning as we continue to evolve the space station is that we're getting more and more commercial users coming to station, and it's very important. The solar arrays are really at the heart of being able to keep station alive and make sure that we can supply power. And as we get more and more users on board, that's going to be a resource that if we didn't do something, we're going to be very limited. So from my perspective, having these new solar arrays are going to be a very big capability for us. The other thing that I would say is probably more ports. If there's anything that we are constantly having to discuss and look at options for, it's how we deal with all the vehicle traffic that comes to station. And so having places to put all these different vehicles, we have a lot of cargo vehicles. We have new capabilities with bringing crews to station, and so trying to make sure that we can play that Tetris game with our ports is sometimes a bit of a challenge. And so solar arrays and ports to me are pretty important.
Thank you. And this question, another from Miguel on Twitter. How do astronauts get leverage when attempting to unscrew tough bolts? You can use your body and gravity on Earth, so it seems a little difficult while floating. Sandy, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. That's one of the main reasons that we have this portable foot restraint that we're putting into the robotic arm, and that gives them a solid platform from which they can work and react to forces. There's also something they carry out called a body restraint tether, or we call it a BRT, that is a handhold that locks them into place and allows them to react forces that way. So they may use that when driving bolts, for example. So if it's a fairly easy bolt, they might just need to have one hand on a handrail to counteract those forces. So there are multiple ways that we can help the crew have that reaction force.
Thank you, Sandy. And an interesting question from Treese on Twitter. Do you feel heat or cold during spacewalks? And Rick, can you answer that for us?
Sure. As you're well aware, the daytime and the nighttime cycles on the space station alternate about every 45 minutes. And so for half of an orbit, the spacewalkers are going to be exposed to sunlight. And for the other half, they're going to be exposed to an eclipse, a nighttime period. And the temperatures vary widely during those regimes. And the crew members have heaters that are installed in their gloves of their spacesuit to help keep their hands warm for those extreme cold temperatures. So while you don't feel the direct impacts of the extreme cold and the extreme heat, you do feel a potential for a chill, and that's why we have heaters in your fingers.
Thank you so much. All very interesting questions, and we're looking forward to these spacewalks. Thank you so much for everyone who is watching. To learn more about these, NASA Television and our website will broadcast the spacewalks live beginning at 5:30 a.m. Eastern Time on the day of each spacewalk. The spacewalks will begin around 7 a.m. and will last approximately 6.5 hours. Tune in on January 27th and February 1st to watch live, and thanks again for joining us today.